Just when you didn't think things could possibly get any more ridiculous in the world of boxing sanctioning bodies, the WBC has announced that Saul Canelo Alvarez is now the WBC Franchise Champion and given their version of the World Middleweight Championship to Jermall Charlo without him ever having to throw a punch or collect a championship payday by facing Alvarez. So, what does franchise champion mean? Well, let's see. Here is the outline according to the World Boxing Council. Number 1, the franchise champion designation is exclusively by appointment of the WBC Board of Governors by a majority vote of the board. That means you're elected champion. Number 2, this designation is not transferable and is exclusively to the fighter who receives such designation. That means you can't lose it. Number 3, the franchise champion will be designated as WBC Emeritus Champion once he retires from boxing. That means you really can never lose it. The franchise champion will proudly represent the WBC in every single fight as a reigning WBC champion, regardless of any specific conditions or titles being associated with all future fights. Okay, WBC rules and regulations will govern under the traditional conditions of boxing in the franchise champion fights. WBC will approve through the franchise champion promoter every opponent scheduled to fight. Translation, the WBC is calling all the shots, and they will always make money whenever their franchise champion fights. Number 5, franchise champion agrees to participate in a minimum of 2 social responsibility events every year, organized in conjunction with the WBC. That would be more money. And number 7, the WBC may award a Diamond Championship belt in those fights in which the franchise champion engages. If the franchise champion loses, the winner will receive the Diamond belt and may be considered as mandatory contender in the division. And yet, more money for the franchise champion is still the franchise champion, and the guy who beats him is the Diamond champion. In short, this is the latest scheme by the WBC to inflate their already overinflated pocketbooks, but at least they got the name right for their new paper champion. So, if I'm reading that correctly, that means the designation means that Alvarez can lose in a title defense, and the WBC would still consider him the champion. Folks, that is not a championship. That is a position. The position of designated cash cow for the WBC. Now, make no mistake about it. At the moment, Canelo Alvarez is the rightful middleweight champion of the world. He earned that. But this move by the WBC has once again proven that this game is straying more and more away from the idea of to be the man, you got to beat the man. However, unlike the WBA's super champion moniker, at least the WBC is calling it what it is. A franchise championship. Not the world championship, but the championship of the WBC franchise. Now, ironically, that reminds me of back when I used to watch wrestling as a kid. I couldn't understand why Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and Nick Bockwinkel never unified the World Wrestling Championship. Obviously, that was because all 3 of them were franchise champions of the old WWF, the NWA, and the AWA, respectively. They were company champions. They were the faces of their respective pro wrestling corporation. Wrestling was a business and not a sporting competition, as Vince McMahon later made public. It was sports entertainment, not a sport. Is this what boxing is devolving to? Is this where our sport is heading? A legitimate comparison with professional wrestling. Sports entertainment, with their very own franchise champions who never face one another, or if they do, they never lose their belts, as if the fans of this sport haven't suffered enough. One of the reasons that I left wrestling behind and latched onto boxing was that in boxing you knew who the baddest man on the planet was. It was real, not scripted. The fights were legit, and you really didn't know who was going to win. But now, after this move, I'm starting to think back to the growing number of bad decisions in championship fights, and I'm starting to wonder. Just starting to wonder, starting to ruminate in my brain. Were those decisions truly because of ineptness of the judges? Or is someone trying to protect the franchise from an unpredictable champion who isn't loyal enough to the brand? Are they trying to milk it for all it's worth, as the old saying goes? Now, maybe that's going too far. But given the increasing emphasis on branding, on marketing, and the ever-growing number of promotional agencies and the difficulty to square up two fighters for one championship, it does give one room to pause for thought, does it not? Maybe my way of thinking is archaic, though. Maybe I'm a dinosaur and my kind are going extinct because we can't adapt and we can't accept the business of boxing as it's being handled today. Newer fans certainly don't seem to have as much of a problem with the world of multiple franchise champions who never face one another. Maybe the idea of a fight is more important than the fight itself in today's boxing economics. The buzz is more important than the honey. For anyone under 30, it must seem strange that once upon a time it was the goal of every fighter to become the one and only world champion, the best in the world in their weight class, rather than merely just the A side of a card. To be the world champion rather than just a star. But that's showbiz. Where have you gone, Marvelous Marvin Hagler? Now he needed a dadgum action figure. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Lord knows I need all the people I can get on this bandwagon for the Boxing and Beyond franchise. This is Wolfman Joe. Peace. Oh, there we go. I'm out of here.